Welcome back to Jersey Matters. Does the state have an epidemic of Lyme disease right now? Some people think so, and to talk about that is Alvaro Toledo, who is a professor of entomology at Rutgers University with a specialty in infectious diseases, especially Lyme disease. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. There is this huge uptick in the cases of Lyme disease, the worst in 20 years. We have over 5,000 cases already. That's how many we normally have for the entire season. What's going on?
Well, first, thanks for having me here. What's going on is that we are basically in the center for this epidemic in New Jersey. We have always been, but over the last 20 years, Lyme disease cases has increased every year. And right now we are, as you say, having around 5,000–6,000 cases of Lyme disease per year in New Jersey. The epidemiology of the disease haven't changed much in New Jersey, but we are witnessing an increase of cases, and probably this is due to an increased awareness of Lyme disease.
Let me interrupt you for a second, because that's important. The point you just made is important. So you're saying that the cases are probably the same from year to year to year to year. It's just that now, because people know so much about Lyme disease and are worried about it, they get to the doctor and get diagnosed. So the diagnosis of cases is up, not necessarily the number of cases.
That's probably true in the case of New Jersey, and the reason is that we already know that Lyme disease is underreported. There are around 30,000 cases reported a year, but the CDC estimated in 2 studies that actually we could be having around 300,000 cases per year, so 10 times more.
So only 1 in every 10 cases is reported?
That's right, that's what we estimate.
But you think it's gone higher in New Jersey. The reason the number is so high in New Jersey, that we shouldn't be alarmed, because it's just because in New Jersey we have so many cases and Lyme disease is in the news so much, people are just going to the doctor.
Yeah, and it's probably, we are seeing more reporting cases of Lyme disease. That doesn't mean that per se we have more cases, at least in New Jersey, which is not a good news either, because we have so many cases and so much Lyme disease that it's difficult to get any worse, in a sense. But due to that environment, people now are more aware of the disease.
So Lyme disease is still a problem. You should still worry about it, but don't be alarmed by the numbers.
Don't be alarmed by the numbers right now, because nothing has changed dramatically in New Jersey. That is a spike in cases of Lyme disease.
So we don't have necessarily more ticks. We don't necessarily have a new breed of ticks.
No.
No.
We don't have a new breed of ticks, as far as we know, that can transmit Lyme disease. We don't know about number of ticks year by year, but because we don't have surveillance for ticks.
But we have surveillance for deer, right?
In a sense, but deer is important to maintain tick populations. So you have a lot of deer, you will maintain high numbers of tick populations, but are not important to transmit the disease. And that's something that people sometimes get confused. They think deer are important for the disease. Deer doesn't have anything to do with Lyme disease, but it has to do with tick population. The more deer that you have, the more ticks that you will have, and those ticks will acquire the pathogen from mice and be able to transmit it to humans in the future.
Is Lyme disease the only infectious disease that ticks carry?
Absolutely not. We have, for example, the deer tick, which is the one that transmits Lyme disease, also transmits anaplasmosis, human granulocytic anaplasmosis.
And what is that exactly?
It's also a tick-borne pathogen that produces, it's an intracellular pathogen, and it produces what is called human granulocytic anaplasmosis. In a sense, the symptoms are kind of similar to many other tick-borne diseases in the beginning. Fever, myalgia, malacia, and that's the challenge with when you want to diagnose tick-borne diseases, that many of them in the early stages display very similar symptoms.
Because I know when you look up on the list online, the most dangerous animals in the world, number 1, if they're counting them in the study, are mosquitoes. Mosquitoes kill more, other than man themselves, mosquitoes kill more people than any other living thing on Earth. Do ticks carry the same infections as mosquitoes?
No. So ticks are very specific to what they carry and what they transmit. And in fact, not all the ticks transmit Lyme disease. Only one tick transmits Lyme disease.
Is that the Lone Star tick they keep talking about?
No, Lone Star tick transmit human ehrlichiosis, but Lyme disease is only transmitted here in the East Coast by Ixodes scapularis, which is the deer tick or the black leg tick.
Are these Latin terms you're using for the ticks? Because you're losing me completely on the Latin terms. But everybody knows what the deer tick looks like. Yeah. It's a very small tick.
It's a very small tick. And actually, one interesting thing about ticks is that they have different stages. So you have the larva, which is extremely tiny. You have a nymph that is like a poppy seed. And you have then the adult. When it comes to transmission dynamic of Lyme disease, the ones that are actually important are the nymphs. And the reason is that they are out in the spring, and they can have Lyme disease. So that's why most of the cases of Lyme disease happen in the spring, when people go out and encounter the nymph of this tick species.
And does off work? Any kind of bug repellent, does that work for ticks?
Yeah, there are tick repellents that work very well.
And wear long sleeves, wear long pants, the things we're told all the time.
Yeah, those things that they repeat over and over are important to keep in mind if you go and do any kind of activity outdoors, because ticks are there. Always check yourself after you go and go for a walk or something like that, and you have been potentially exposed. I also recommend to take a shower and check yourself, just because these ticks are very tiny and they are painless.
You know, one problem we're having, and I've talked to a lot of people in our neighborhood because we're around woods, that they're having as well, is that you have dogs with repellent on them, and they'll still carry in the ticks, but they won't bite the dog. So they end up in your house.
Yeah.
And then when they end up in your house, the best way to get rid of them is?
Well, generally a tick, if they don't find a host, they will die. So the worst case scenario is that they find a host and it's you. There is no, I think, good way to get rid of ticks once they are in your house.
Oh, really?
Because
tissue, grabbing them and.
Well, if you see where they are, yes, grab them and discard them. But if they drop off the dog and then they are wandering in your house, then there is no a good really method to catch them.
All right, that's bad news. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate you coming in. Alvaro Toledo, messed it up. Alvaro Toledo, Professor of Entomology from Rutgers University. Jersey Matters continues right after this. Still to come on Jersey Matters, imagine graduating from college before you graduate from high school. Our next guest did it. You'll meet him when we continue.